I saved for months to buy my daughter a $2,000 laptop. My sister's kids burned it while my parents laughed. The flames devoured the corners of that pristine Apple box before my daughter's MacBook Pro even touched the burning logs. I can still see the way Emma's breath caught in her throat, the way her 15-year-old hands trembled in midair as if she could somehow command the fire to release her precious laptop back to safety. I didn't rush forward to save it. I didn't scream or cry out. I simply stood there, watching $2,000 of my hard-earned money turn to ash and melted plastic. My parents were doubled over with laughter on their lawn chairs. My older sister Rebecca leaned back with that familiar smirk painted across her face. Her twin boys, Jake and Noah, clapped their hands like this was some 4th of July fireworks show instead of the deliberate destruction of my child's future. "Maybe this will teach her not to be such a spoiled little princess," Rebecca said, her voice dripping with a kind of satisfaction that comes from watching someone else's dreams burn. That's when I smiled. And I swear, the entire backyard fell silent except for the crackling of those flames. It hadn't always been this way between Rebecca and me. Growing up in our modest ranch house on Maple Street in Columbus, Ohio, we'd been inseparable. We shared everything: clothes from the Goodwill, secrets whispered under our shared comforter, and the same cramped twin bed during those Midwest thunderstorms that rattled our windows. Rebecca was always the wild one, the risk-taker who'd dare me to sneak out to Miller's Pond or steal candy from Murphy's Corner store. I loved her fearless spirit back then. But love can rot when it becomes a one-way street. The poison started seeping in slowly, maybe around the time I graduated summa cum laude from Ohio State while she dropped out of community college. Her compliments began arriving wrapped in barbed wire. "How sweet of Mom to buy you that dress for graduation. I guess she feels sorry that you never learned how to dress yourself." Little paper cuts disguised as sisterly teasing. When I married David 3 years later, Rebecca didn't raise her glass for the traditional toast. Instead, she cornered my new husband by the punch bowl. "Fair warning," she whispered loud enough for me to overhear, "Samantha's always been fragile. You'll need the patience of a saint." When David and I bought our first home, a cozy 2-bedroom starter in Grandview Heights, Rebecca stood in our living room with pursed lips. "Well, it's certainly quaint. Like a little dollhouse. Don't worry, you'll upgrade eventually." The jealousy transformed into something truly venomous after Emma was born. Rebecca spoiled her own boys rotten, buying them every gaming system and designer sneaker they demanded, yet she called my daughter entitled whenever I managed to give Emma something special that she'd actually earned. That laptop wasn't some frivolous luxury purchase. It was necessity disguised as a gift. Emma is brilliant, sharper than anyone I've ever known, including myself. She dreams of becoming a graphic designer, spending hours sketching characters and designing logos in her composition notebooks. Her old Dell desktop was a dinosaur from 2015, wheezing and freezing every time she tried to run anything more complex than Microsoft Word. So I made a decision. I started working double shifts at Cleveland Memorial Hospital, picking up every weekend and holiday shift available. I stopped buying my usual Starbucks venti pike on the way to work, making coffee at home instead. Date nights with David became movie nights on our couch with microwave popcorn. I cancelled our Netflix subscription and started shopping exclusively at Aldi, clipping every coupon I could find. For 8 months, I watched every single dollar, cutting my own needs down to the bone until I had saved exactly $2,127.98, enough for the MacBook Pro with the design software Emma needed, plus tax. The day I brought it home from the Apple Store in Easton Town Center, Emma burst into tears. She hugged me so tight I thought my ribs might crack. "I promise I'll make you proud, Mom," she whispered against my shoulder. "I'll become the best designer you've ever seen." And she was keeping that promise. Emma had been accepted into the Advanced Digital Arts program at her high school. Her portfolio was already attracting attention from Columbus College of Art and Design. She was on track for early admission and a partial scholarship, something that would change our entire family's trajectory. Until tonight. Until Rebecca's 13-year-old twins decided that destroying someone else's future would make for entertaining dinner conversation. We'd come to my parents' house for what was supposed to be a peaceful Labor Day barbecue. Dad was grilling his famous bourbon-glazed ribs while Mom fussed over her 3-bean salad. Emma had brought her new laptop to show her grandparents the animated short film she'd been working on for her portfolio. She was so proud, so excited to share her talent with the family. That's when Jake and Noah struck. While the adults were focused on Dad's storytelling about his fishing trip to Lake Erie, the boys snuck into the house and emerged with Emma's laptop bag. They were tossing it back and forth like a football, laughing as Emma begged them to stop. Come on, guys, please don't, Emma pleaded, her voice cracking with panic. I have all my projects on there. But they were enjoying her distress too much to stop. Before any of us adults fully registered what was happening, Noah had unzipped the bag and hurled the laptop directly into the fire pit where Dad's old newspapers were still smoldering from earlier. I watched my sacrifice disappear into those flames, and something fundamental shifted inside my chest. Not anger. Anger is hot and immediate. This was something cold and calculating, like ice forming over a deep lake. The kind of cold that preserves things, keeps them fresh for exactly the right moment. My father shifted uncomfortably in his lawn chair, his laughter dying away as he finally grasped the magnitude of what had just happened. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, her 3-bean salad forgotten on her paper plate. Rebecca's satisfied smirk began to falter as she noticed the way I was looking at her boys. I leaned forward in my chair, keeping my voice steady and calm. Do you boys know what I saved for while your mother spent $300 a month on cigarettes and took that cruise to the Bahamas last spring? Jake and Noah's grins started to fade. They glanced nervously at their mother, suddenly understanding that this wasn't the reaction they'd expected. Do you know what I cut back on while your mom racked up $8,000 in credit card debt for that new iPhone and those designer purses she just had to have? I continued, my tone never rising above conversational level. I gave my daughter something that mattered. Something that could change her entire future. I turned my attention directly to the boys. And you too? Did you enjoy it? Destroying something you could never earn for yourselves? Something that represented months of sacrifice from someone who actually works for what she has. Their faces had gone pale. Noah kicked at the dirt with his Jordans, the $200 sneakers Rebecca had bought him just last week while claiming she couldn't afford to pay me back the $500 I'd loaned her for groceries. Rebecca bristled, straightening up in her chair. Oh, come on, Samantha. It's just a computer. Emma will live. You're being way too dramatic about this. I smiled again, the same smile I'd worn while watching her sons destroy my daughter's future. You're absolutely right, Rebecca. Emma will live. She'll survive this, just like she survived all the other times your family has tried to tear her down. I paused, letting that sink in before delivering the rest. But you? Well, we'll just have to see about that. The threat hung in the evening air like smoke from the fire pit. David reached over and squeezed my hand, recognizing the tone I only used when I was deadly serious about something. Emma had moved closer to my chair, sensing that something significant was about to change in our family dynamic. Rebecca laughed, but it sounded forced now. What's that supposed to mean? I stood up, brushing imaginary dust off my jeans. It means that some lessons are more expensive than others. And some people need to learn them the hard way. Revenge didn't come that night in a burst of screaming or tears. It arrived the next morning with my first cup of coffee and a clear head. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, my own ancient Dell that I'd been making do with for years, and began making phone calls. The first call went to Huntington Bank. 3 years ago, when my parents' medical bills started piling up after Dad's heart attack, they'd needed someone to co-sign a small loan to consolidate their debt. They'd asked me, their responsible daughter, the one with the steady job and good credit. I'd signed those papers without hesitation, wanting to help the people who'd raised me. I'd like to speak to someone about loan account number 4457892, I told the customer service representative. I'm the co-signer, and I need to understand my options. What my parents had forgotten, what I'd never forgotten, was that as co-signer, I had certain rights, including the right to demand immediate payment of the full balance if I felt the loan was at risk. And after watching them laugh while their grandchildren destroyed $2,000 worth of property, I definitely felt this loan was at risk. I'd like to invoke my co-signer protection clause, I said calmly. I'm demanding immediate payment of the full balance. The representative explained the 30-day notice period. My parents would have 1 month to pay the remaining $12,000 or face default proceedings. Their safety net, the one they'd taken for granted, was about to disappear. The second phase of my plan involved Rebecca directly. My sister had always relied on me more than she'd ever admit, especially since her husband left 2 years ago. I was the one who babysat Jake and Noah every other weekend so she could work her second job at Target. I was the one who loaned her money when her car needed repairs or when the boys needed new clothes for school. I was her emergency contact, her backup plan, her safety net. I opened my phone and began typing messages to every group chat that included Rebecca. Our family chat. The neighborhood moms group. The PTA committee we both served on. From today forward, I am not available for childcare, loans, or emergencies. Please make other arrangements. This is effective immediately. I hit send on all of them, then blocked Rebecca's number from my phone. But I wasn't finished yet. Not even close. Rebecca's boys had always been careless with their social media presence. Their Instagram accounts were public, full of the kind of content that would make any parent cringe. I'd noticed it over the years but had kept my mouth shut, figuring it wasn't my place to parent someone else's children. That consideration was officially over. I spent the next 2 hours carefully screenshotting everything. Photos of them drinking beer at house parties. Videos of them vandalizing the local Walmart with spray paint. Screenshots of group chats where they bragged about cheating on tests and mocked their teachers. Pictures of them shoplifting energy drinks from the 7-Eleven on High Street. I didn't have to create lies or embellish the truth. Rebecca's boys had provided me with everything I needed, gift-wrapped and ready for delivery. All I had to do was compile their digital confessions and share them with the appropriate authorities. The first email went to Principal Morrison at Westerville North High School, where both boys were enrolled. I attached every screenshot of their academic dishonesty, every photo of them disrupting school property, and every video of them bullying younger students. I wrote a brief, factual cover letter explaining that I felt the administration should be aware of these concerning behaviors. The second email went to Officer Patricia Williams at the Westerville Police Department's Juvenile Division. The shoplifting evidence, the vandalism videos, and the underage drinking photos went to her, along with specific timestamps and locations I'd been able to identify from the background details in their posts. The third batch of information went to the parents of every child Jake and Noah had bullied or mocked online. I'd spent hours cross-referencing faces and names, making sure each family received the screenshots that pertained to their children specifically. I wasn't spreading gossip or seeking revenge through rumors. I was simply shining a bright, unforgiving light on behavior that had been hidden in the shadows for too long. By Wednesday, Rebecca's phone was ringing constantly. Principal Morrison called first, demanding a meeting about the boys' academic integrity violations. Officer Williams followed up with questions about the shoplifting incidents caught on security footage that matched the photos Jake had proudly posted online. The parents started calling too, some angry, some heartbroken, all demanding answers about why Rebecca's children had targeted their kids for harassment. My own phone stayed blissfully silent. I'd blocked Rebecca's number, and I'd made it clear to my parents that I wasn't interested in playing mediator in this situation. David found me in the kitchen Thursday evening, making Emma's favorite dinner, homemade mac and cheese with breadcrumb topping. "Your mom called my office today," he said quietly. "She wanted me to ask you to reconsider whatever you're doing to Rebecca." I stirred the cheese sauce slowly, watching it thicken to the perfect consistency. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that you're a grown woman who makes her own decisions," David replied. "And that maybe she should ask herself why she was laughing when those boys destroyed Emma's laptop instead of calling them on their behavior." Emma looked up from her homework at the kitchen table, work she was doing on the replacement laptop I'd already ordered with my emergency fund. "Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at us, Mom?" I set down my wooden spoon and turned to face my daughter. "They're not mad at us, sweetheart. They're upset because they're finally seeing the consequences of choices they've made. That's different from being mad." "Jake texted me an apology," Emma said quietly. "He said he was sorry and that he didn't think about how much the laptop meant to me." I felt a flicker of something, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that sorry doesn't fix my portfolio, that I have to rebuild from scratch. And that maybe he should think before he acts next time." Smart girl. She was learning that apologies without changed behavior are just words. The explosion came on a Friday afternoon, exactly 2 weeks after the barbecue incident. I was folding laundry in my bedroom when I heard the front door slam so hard that the windows rattled. Rebecca's voice echoed through the house, high-pitched and furious. "Samantha, get down here right now." I took my time folding Emma's last t-shirt, then walked slowly down the stairs. Rebecca stood in my living room like a tornado in human form, hair disheveled, mascara smudged, hands shaking with rage. "You destroyed my children's lives," she screamed, pointing at me with a trembling finger. "Jake and Noah have been suspended from school. The police want to interview them. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I settled into my favorite armchair, the same one where I used to read Emma bedtime stories when she was small. "I haven't done anything," Rebecca. Your sons destroyed their own lives. I just stopped covering it up like you always have. They're kids, she shrieked. They made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes at that age. Burning my daughter's laptop wasn't a mistake, I replied calmly. It was a choice. Just like posting evidence of their illegal activities online was a choice. Just like you choosing to laugh instead of discipline them was a choice. Rebecca began pacing back and forth across my hardwood floors, her cheap heels clicking with each step. You think you're so much better than me, don't you? You think you're perfect. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice until it was barely above a whisper. No, Rebecca. I just stopped letting you drag me down to your level. I stopped enabling your behavior and your children's behavior. And now everyone can see who you really are when you don't have me cleaning up your messes. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. For the first time in 35 years, my sister was completely speechless. The loan, she finally managed to whisper. Mom and Dad said you called in their loan. They might lose the house. They have 30 days to find $12,000, I said matter-of-factly. The same amount I've probably loaned you and them over the past 5 years combined. Money I'll never see again because none of you have ever considered paying me back. We're family. Rebecca's voice cracked on the last word. I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked my carefully maintained front yard. The yard David and I had spent weekends perfecting, the flower beds we'd planted together, the swing set we'd assembled for Emma when she was 6. Family doesn't laugh when family gets hurt, I said without turning around. Family doesn't destroy what family has worked for. Family doesn't take and take and take without ever giving anything back. When I finally turned to face her, Rebecca's anger had crumbled into something that looked almost like fear. What do you want from me? She whispered. That night, after Rebecca had left my house with her tail between her legs, I found Emma at the kitchen table working on her rebuilt portfolio. The new MacBook Pro hummed quietly, this one even better than the original, paid for with money I'd saved by cutting my toxic family members out of my financial life. She looked up at me with those intelligent eyes she'd inherited from her father. Mom, was it worth it? All this drama with Aunt Rebecca and Grandma and Grandpa. I pulled out the chair beside her and sat down, watching her navigate the design software with the skill of someone twice her age. Emma, let me tell you something important. Sometimes in life, people will try to convince you that keeping the peace is more important than standing up for yourself. They'll tell you that family is family, and you have to forgive and forget no matter what. She saved her work and turned to face me completely. But there's a difference between forgiveness and being a doormat. There's a difference between family loyalty and enabling destructive behavior. I reached over and tucked a strand of her dark hair behind her ear. What your aunt and cousins did to you was wrong. What your grandparents did by laughing about it was wrong. And what I did in response. That wasn't revenge, sweetheart. That was justice. Emma nodded slowly. So you don't regret it? I thought about my parents, probably sitting at their kitchen table right now trying to figure out how to come up with $12,000 in 3 weeks. I thought about Rebecca, dealing with the consequences of her son's actions for the first time in their lives. I thought about Jake and Noah, finally learning that their choices have real-world consequences. Then I looked at my daughter, brilliant, talented, kind-hearted Emma, working on her art with a tool she'd earned through her dedication and my sacrifice. No, I said firmly. I don't regret it at all. Because now you know something important about life. Justice doesn't always come with screaming and drama. Sometimes it just comes with boundaries. Sometimes it just comes with letting people experience the natural consequences of their choices. I smiled then, the same smile I'd worn watching that fire consume Emma's laptop, the same smile that had silenced my entire family's laughter. But this time, it wasn't cold or calculating. This time, it was filled with something much more powerful than anger. It was filled with peace. And sometimes, I added, standing up to start making us some hot chocolate, justice just smiles back. 3 months later, Emma received her early admission letter to Columbus College of Art and Design, along with a full scholarship that covered tuition, room, and board. She'd rebuilt her portfolio from scratch, and somehow it was even better than the original. My parents managed to avoid foreclosure by taking out a loan against their life insurance policy. They never asked me for help again. Rebecca got a second job to pay for the family counseling the court mandated after Jake and Noah's legal troubles. Her boys are doing community service and attending weekly therapy sessions. As for me, I sleep better now than I have in years. Because I finally learned the difference between being kind and being weak. And I taught my daughter that sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's destructive behavior. Sometimes love means setting boundaries. Sometimes love means letting go. And sometimes, love means watching the fire burn.